Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Friends, welcome back. It's episode 46. And today we're so excited to have Jenn Bouchard, award-winning author, in to chat with us.
Hey, Donna, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Hope?
You know, it's a beautiful day here. Sun is shining. I love the warm weather, but I'm really excited to talk to this author. She has been on my radar for a while, and I can't wait to get into this conversation. So let's just bring her on in. Hello, Jenn. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, Jenn.
Hi.
Well, before we start, I just want to give everyone a little bit about your background, about you. Jenn is an award-winning author. She is a member of Grub Street and the Women's Fiction Writers Association, as well as a board member for her local Dollars for Scholars chapter. She is an avid cook and is always planning her next adventure. First Course was published in 2021 by TouchPoint Press and was released as an audiobook in 2023. Her latest book just came out, which is called Considering Us, and was published by Black Rose Writing. Congratulations on your latest book launch. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So Considering Us was a book that I wrote in the later half of 2022. I'm a high school teacher, and at that point, I had taught through kind of the worst of the pandemic, and it was a very stressful situation. Things kept changing all the time, all of our protocols. I went from having 5 classes to 10 for a while there. And I just needed something really light and funny and fun. And that is what Considering Us is. It is not a sad or serious book at all. And I had a blast writing it.
So I loved what Kirkus Review said. It said a soul-searching second chance romance for readers who love a strong female lead. I just love this concept because first off, you have a very complicated protagonist. It's called, her name is Devin, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she has found herself in kind of a very interesting situation. And she is juggling not just one kind of love interest, but multiple. Talk to us a little bit about how you develop this character, because she's lovable, but she's got flaws.
Absolutely. And I really wanted to write someone who was complicated and who was given a lot of obstacles and interesting situations, and she has to get herself out of them and find her happy ending. And that's the path that she's on. I really wanted to write a forced proximity, second chance romance. And I thought, what better than to put these people at a boarding school where they are living and working in very close proximity to each other. And Devin and Kyle had gone to college together, hadn't really known each other, ended up sort of thrown together by circumstances, had this very memorable night together, and then they both left the next day for semesters in different places. He went to London, she went to Washington, D.C., and they never saw each other again. So 15 years later, Devin's in a situation where she absolutely needs a job for at least a year. And she's interviewing for a position as director of dining. She's a private chef by trade, director of dining at this boarding school. And everything's great. She's super excited. She's going to take the job. And at the very end of her tour around campus, she sees him. She sees Kyle. And he is a history teacher and soccer coach at the school.
And she also has another complication. She's also a private chef. She's making these cookies for this professional athlete. How did you come up with that? Because I know food is very important to you, and we're going to talk about that.
So I loved and I didn't know in 2022 that the Boston Celtics were going to win the championship. So my timing has been fantastic. But I love Boston professional sports. This is where I live, and this is a huge part of the culture here. So I wanted to include this element. I wanted her to, as part of this private chef job. I was kind of pairing it a little bit. I was doing a little bit of a take on Jerry Maguire, the movie that came out in the late 90s, where Jerry has one client left. I liked that concept. So David Anders, the Celtics player, is her only client left, and it's not enough for her to survive on. That's why she takes the job. But she manages to keep him as her client. And he is a very talented basketball player, but he is reclusive, and he doesn't really leave his condo much. And he really relies on her to once a week come down to Boston and bring him all this great food, including these cookies. The cookies, she starts making them on the Rockwood campus as well. And the students love them. The teachers love them. So the cookies really tie people together throughout the story. And they're so good.
Do you make them for events?
Yes. Yeah. They are so good. And I have a bunch of book clubs right now that are reading the book, and they are making the cookies as well for their book club meetings.
Because you include the recipe on your website.
Yes. And at book events, I have cards with the recipe as well. So when people buy a book, I slip in a recipe for the cookies.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
So I know your first book, First Course, because I read it and it was amazing, is also based on food. Yeah. What's your food connection?
So I did definitely grow up eating very well, but it really was when I was out of college and in my early to mid 20s that my husband and I moved to Chicago, and we had a lot of friends kind of coming through Chicago on their way, moving west, moving east. It was a very transient time of life as people were going to grad school and things like that. And so I started cooking more, thinking about what will people want when they, stay with us? And this friend's vegetarian, and this friend can't eat this, and this friend likes that, whatever. So I started thinking about food, in a broader sense. And then that's around the time I got into Ina Garten's cookbooks. And she's my queen. I love her. And I really kind of learned how to become a better cook through her cookbooks, because she made delicious things so much easier.
Yeah, I love Ina Garten too. Butter, butter, butter. My son is a chef, and he actually was a chef in Chicago. And so I've been there many times. They have an amazing food scene.
They do.
So I'm wondering, what was your favorite restaurant in Chicago?
Oh, we had so many, and some of them aren't even there anymore. Like, we love Spiaggia. That's not there anymore. But Girl and the Goat, have you been? It's such a fun experience. And we sat at the chef's counter, and Stephanie Izzard was working there. This was, only about a year after they had opened, and I got to talk to her a little bit, which was really incredible. Love all the Rick Bayless stuff, Topola Bombos, things like that. I mean, there's just so much good food in Chicago. It is
It
wild.
really is. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, let's talk about your first book and talk about what it was like to get your first book out there. Because Donna and I, we both, our books came out within a month of one another. And so we were really on a journey together for about 18 months. Tell us, how is the first launch compared to the second launch?
Yeah. Well, a lot has changed. So my first book came out in June of 2021, which was pretty challenging. Things were starting to open up a little bit, but there were a lot of libraries and bookstores that were still closed for events. My book launch was virtual through a bookstore, through Belmont Books here in Massachusetts, which is a great place. But it was definitely not the same experience I'm having right now, where I'm running all over New England, having these wonderful events, getting to meet readers in person. It's a very different way of connecting with people.
Yeah.
And I'm a people person. I want to have conversations with people. And it's interesting because these opportunities have opened up more, right? We're doing more things like this where I can connect with people all over the country and all over the world, which is fantastic. And then to combine that with in-person events is really, really nice. So I am I'm enjoying this launch a lot more. Part of it is I know what I'm doing this time, or
Yeah.
I was just learning as I was going. I'm still learning. There's things, that I won't do for my next book, but I think just the relationships I'm able to establish now with booksellers and librarians and readers is invaluable. And I can see why people keep coming back for more and doing this with multiple books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
And your
Um,
website, you do have a ton of events. I kept
Yeah.
scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So kudos to you for finding those opportunities because it really is hard.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That listing is also for me as well. It's almost like a personal calendar at this point, because when someone asks if are you free on this day, I'm like, let me look at my website really quickly because I need to see what I might be doing at that same time.
How much time would you say do you devote to setting up events and, reaching
lot.
out to people?
If you saw the document of all the places I've reached down to, and there's so many places you don't hear back from at all, ever.
Yeah.
Or if you do, then suddenly you don't hear from them. So I always tell everyone, you don't hear from about 95% of the people you reach out to. So
Right.
it's a significant amount of time. I multitask pretty well, and I keep a lot of reminders in my phone. So if I all of a sudden think of something, I'm like, oh, I've got to reach out to this person. I'll keep it for myself, and then at some point that day, I can get to it. But right now, I'm definitely, I'm doing a lot, but I've got some really nice relationships established. And when my next book comes out, I should be able to have an easier time scheduling events, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point because from one time to the next time, it certainly is easier because you've already established those.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
One
I
thing
was
that
going to
go
ask
ahead.
you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No, go
Hope.
ahead. No, one thing I was gonna talk to you about is because I did a deep dive on you and on your website, and
Thank you.
Dawn and I,
Mhm.
we've done a couple of episodes on establishing an author brand.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed with I love this winning coastal women's fiction romantic comedy. And I love everything that you brand. Tell us, how did you come up with everything? Because it is really hard when you're starting out.
Yeah. So I think, so much of it is that I love being on the coast. Like this week, I was down. We had this week off from school, which was really great, and we actually had some decent weather, which hasn't been that way in New England much over the last 6 months, as Donna knows. I got to spend some time on Cape Cod, which is where my next book will be set. I was up in on the North Shore of Massachusetts near Newburyport, and I love being on the coast of New England. And so for me, I want to write books set in places that I can spend time in, because right now at this stage of my life, I don't have flexibility to go and travel. I see what other authors are doing. They're traveling the world. They're going on these long retreats in Paris and things like that. And that is lovely. I would love to be able to do those things. I can't right now. Where I can go is get in my car and drive an hour to the North Shore of Massachusetts and spend a lovely day there. And so I want to set my stories in places that I really enjoy and that I can easily access so that I can make them authentic and genuine. And I think too, for me, like the food element, I needed some sort of a niche, something that was true to me. And that is something that is important to me in my life and my family and my friends. And so I enjoy adding that aspect to it. The book I'm almost done writing right now, the guy is the cook. So Don, I'm thinking about your a little bit here.
Yeah, if you need a little research, I might have a connection.
Yeah, and his family owns an Italian restaurant, and oh my gosh, there's so much garlic in this book, but everyone's eating garlic, so it's fine. So I think that's something that's true to me and has helped me to establish a brand as well.
My listeners know that Cape Cod is my happy place.
Yeah.
So I'm interested, where is your book set on the Cape?
So this is set in Dennis, so
Okay.
mid-Cape. And I'm actually doing an event there next weekend.
Nice.
Congrats.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So our tagline for this podcast, and it was funny because Don and I came up with this almost instantly, was all the things that we learned the hard way so you don't have to.
Right.
Tell us, I want to ask a couple of questions. The writing what you've learned along the way and actually publishing. So let's start with publishing. What was one of the things that you learned the hard way?
There's a lot. So my publisher for First Course is no longer in existence.
Oh,
And that is a very long story. If you're interested, you could look it up in Publishers Weekly, and there is an article that will go into great detail about what happened at TouchPoint Press. So that ended up with me having to republish First Course under my own imprint, and to learn how to do that. Luckily, I did this last May. Luckily, I have a number of friends who are prolific self-publishers, and they walked me through how to work with Ingram and Amazon. It was tricky for a while there. Amazon would not put my ebook up, and said, well, we already, you already have a published book, you can't do this. But I didn't anymore. And so that took a while, and the Authors Guild had to get involved with that. So I think, asking for help, knowing where to go for help is really important. But that's hard when you first start out, because when I first wrote First Course, I didn't have writer friends. I didn't have a community. I was a member of WFWA, but, I didn't even know the right questions to ask a lot of the time. Now I definitely have avenues to go, but even then it can take a really long time. I mean, it took about a month for me to get that ebook situation rectified. And in the meantime, I was losing money.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important that you mention the Writers Guild, the Authors Guild.
Yeah.
We've talked about that recently in episodes with just, pirating books and whatnot. And it's important to have, lawyers who can help you out. And the Authors Guild is so good for that.
They have someone who works with Amazon. Like, that's a huge part of their job, is to work on issues like this with Amazon. So I was having no luck on my own, and I only got it fixed when they got involved.
Wow.
That's
good
great.
to know. So tell us about on the writing side. What have you learned the hard way through book 1, 2, and 3?
So it took me 2.5 years to write a first draft of First Course. I mean, part of it was I had no idea what I was doing. My kids were a lot younger, and I was also just belaboring every single chapter, and I would rewrite them. That first chapter I probably rewrote 20, right? And so it is now, I think with the next 2 books that I wrote, I was able to I had more confidence. I think I was able to be a lot freer with writing it and not stress as much with the first draft. So I wrote the next 2 books in 6 months. The book I'm writing right now is taking a little longer, I think, because I have a senior in high school, and I'm doing so many other things, plus promoting this book. So I should be done in the next couple of weeks with this draft.
So what made you want to be a writer in the first place? Have you always been writing?
No. It was about 10 years ago, and I had just finished a major volunteer role. I was the president of my college's alumni association for 2 years, and I really enjoyed that a lot. I'm a people person. I got to go to campus a lot. I got to be a part of some really significant events like the president's inauguration and all these different things, and it was great. So when it was over, I kind of felt like I'd been dropped off a cliff a bit. Like I just had lost so much of what I had kind of filled my bucket with. And I needed to find something else. And I had no idea what that could be. And we were at the beach towards the end of the summer. And I said to my husband, I think I want to try to write a novel. And he was like, all right, give it a try. Just see. And so luckily, I'm in an area where a lot of authors come through town, and I went to a lot of author events, got to hear from some really great people. And it was probably the most inspirational one I went to go see was Lisa Genova. And she had gone to Bates as well a few years ahead of me, and she was getting an award from the college. And so it was a Q&A with her, and she talked about how she could not get Still Alice published initially. She was selling it out of the back of her car. Self-published copies of Still Alice that goes on to become, the basis for an Academy Award nominated film. And So I think hearing that story, I was like, okay, so there are paths for things, and it might be a tough journey. I never had any illusions that this was going to be easy, but just hearing that people who were so talented and now so successful had gone through challenges at first, I was like, well, I think I can do this. It might not look like everybody else necessarily, but there's a path most likely for me if I want this. And I decided I did.
Did you go to any craft books? Did you use any
Nope.
craft books when you
I
started?
didn't.
You didn't.
I did not. I mean,
Wow. Kudos to you.
I've always liked writing. I think I've been a strong writer. This has obviously made me a stronger writer, but writing, almost 4 books now. And I started writing some short stories as well. After I had finished writing first course and I was waiting for it to get published, I started writing short stories, and I've had 6 of those published. And I do enjoy writing those as well. They're a lot of fun.
Oh, cool.
So for our listeners out there and they're thinking about writing, they've got an idea. What is the best advice you have for them?
I would say and I taught a short story class for adults in January, so we had a lot of these conversations, and I'd say, think about what you're interested in writing. Is it something, are there characters that you really can't get out of your head that you want to write about? Is there an inciting incident? Because you're going to need both, but let's start with something. Let's start with what is driving this thought in your brain that you want to put something down, and then work from that. And then start to develop your characters or start to develop your inciting incident, and then go from there. I do recommend, if people are truly not sure what they want to do, start with something small. And at a lot of book events, I have a lot of times teenagers come up to me and want to talk to me, and they don't really know exactly even what they want to say. They kind of stand in front of me and just stare at me. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, so do you write? And this girl yesterday I talked to at an event, she's like, I write poetry. And I was like, oh, that's great. I said, I can't write a poem to save my life. But I'm like, so, have you ever thought about trying to publish a poem? And she's like, not really, but I'd like to. And so we talked about that and how she might go about that. So I think just thinking about like what you would like to accomplish here, at least for a starting point, and it's okay to start small.
What age group do you teach?
I teach mostly high school seniors, so 17 and 18-year-olds.
So do you incorporate creative writing in whatever it is that you teach?
So I teach AP government, so not as much, but we do a lot of things that involve expression and creativity. We do a number of debates, and where the students have to take on certain roles. Yeah. So that allows for a lot of creativity.
Yeah, that's
well.
Cool.
We could sit here and talk all day, but we're going to be winding this down. But I want to get just real quick a little bit of insight about, because you're a teacher, you are, a full-time mom, you've got your writing, you've got all these events. How do you juggle it? What is your writing schedule? Are you very regimented in your schedule, or you just write when you have a chance?
Yeah, I can't be all that regimented right now because my schedule is so packed. So, even this morning I found, about 20 minutes and I worked through, the beginning of a chapter. A lot of times what I will try to do is if I'm getting started with a story, like I will look at the calendar. We have this huge whiteboard calendar on the side of our family room. It is enormous because it's the only thing that works for our family, because everyone needs to kind of see what's going on. And I'll look at the calendar and I'll be like, okay, well, I could take a block of time here, and I kind of schedule it like a doctor's appointment. And my goal in the summer is to start working on a book after school gets out. And by the time school starts at the end of August, I like to have about 30,000 words done, because at least at that point, I know where it's going.
Where it's going.
Yeah.
Well, I know our audience, they're going to want to keep up with you. Where can they find you on social media, and where would you prefer to be contacted through?
So you can find me all on the same handle. I'm Jenn Bouchard, BOS for Boston. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky. They keep adding all these different things. So I'm there. My website is jennbouchard.com. Pretty easy to find.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Jenn.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah, I can't wait to read Considering Us, and I thoroughly enjoyed First Course.
Oh,
So
thank you so much.
I hope our readers will buy these books and love them.
Absolutely. And Donna, real quick, tell us about our next episode.
Sure. Our next episode is how journaling can fuel storytelling.
Yes, I can't wait for that because journaling actually led me to write a book. So very excited. And Jenn, again, thank you so much. And everyone, until next time.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.